Welcome back to URL versus IRL, you guys. For once in my life, I'm not going to say this is a highly anticipated episode, and I'm so excited for today, okay? Because let me give you guys a little bit of information. Let me fill you in on the tea. Number one, this is my third attempt of trying to record this fucking episode today, okay? It is not going well for me today. The first time I tried to record this episode, I felt like I couldn't really get my thoughts together, and I talked for like 10 minutes, and I was like, okay, fuck it, let me restart. Second time that I tried to record this episode, I had my computer speakers playing the playback out loud the entire time, and I couldn't tell because I had headphones on until I realized that it sounded like a little weird. And I was like 35 minutes in, and I realized that I forgot to mute my computer speakers. So it's not going good for me today. It's really not. It's not my day today. But we're going to get through this together, I promise. Let's roll the intro music and then get started. You're tuning into URL versus IRL, hosted by Bri Lynch. Do you know how long this episode has been needed to be filmed? I have been avoiding filming this episode like the plague for at least 10 days. At least 10 days. Do you guys remember when I posted on my Instagram story, probably like a week and a half ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago now? I posted a video a couple of times where I basically was asking you guys to ask me a question in the question sticker above my head. Just trying to get you guys to like ask me whatever questions it was that you had before I filmed this solo episode. I was supposed to post that video way earlier in the week. I don't remember what was going on, but I was supposed to post that video way earlier in the week so that you guys had the entire week to ask me questions before I sat down and filmed the episode at the end of the week. Then I ended up avoiding that somehow, and I was like, I'll do it over the weekend. Then the weekend came and went, and I was like, I'll do it during the week. And then the week came and went, and now here we are today, finally filming this episode. First of all, let me tell you. First of all, we're sitting in a podcast studio, okay? Which is wild for me to say. We're literally only on episode 11, and we have a podcast studio now? Like, literally, what? It's nothing too crazy. It's just a room in our house, but this room used to literally be a storage room, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But this studio, obviously, as you guys know, I didn't have a podcast studio in my house because who the fuck would at episode 1? Let's do a little bit of reflection really quick. I'm very proud of how far this podcast has come in the short period of time that it has lived so far, because we're literally only on episode 11, which means that this is week 11 of me doing this. And the fact that I have a whole fucking room in my house dedicated to this already is absolutely wild, but we'll get into that later on. So let's do a little bit of reflection, shall we? Episode 1 was crazy. Okay, we did episode 1 with Sarah Haro, and we recorded that literally, I don't know why I'm saying we, it's literally just me. I recorded that episode with Sarah in a hotel with these little tiny field mics, okay? It is literally the size of a cracker, okay? This is almost the size of a Tamagotchi. They're so small. They're literally smaller than a fucking Pringle. But anyways, that's how we filmed episode 1. In a hotel. Sarah and I were on location. I had absolutely no idea if the audio was actually recording. I had no way of like hearing playback or anything. I basically just had to trust the process and hope to God. Episode 2, I finally got myself a pod mic. I just got one for me, I think. Maybe I got 2. No, I think I just got one for myself. So I got my pod mic and recorded that one. No video, no nothing. Just, you know, still in the space of trying to figure it out. Finally decided we're going to do video on episode 5. And what a fucking nightmare that was. Literally, episode 5 was an episode from hell. I cannot stress this enough. Episode 5 is where my laptop crashed, and I learned a lot during that episode, clearly. I just was like, okay, I have to find a way to have like a backup recording. I need to have a room mic, obviously, because in case if one of our microphones gets fucked up, we were dealing with this weird like interference thing that was going on. And I ended up having to buy a new laptop, and I also bought myself a micro SD card to put into my interface that I record the podcast on. Started using a room mic, just like literally doubled the amount of footage and information that I had, and I started recording video, okay? Now, here's the thing. I was recording the video in my living room because I didn't really have anywhere else to do it. I cannot stand recording in my living room. It's the worst thing in the world, literally. First of all, we have shitty lighting in my living room, okay? Me just talking shit on my house. we have shitty lighting in my living room because we don't have a lot of overhead lights in this house. So we just kind of like make lights. We use a sunset lamp in my living room most of the time. And then we have this big like overhead fan style light that's not very bright by any means and not flattering in any way, shape, or form. But we use it if we absolutely have to, okay? So I just brought my like shitty little ring light into my living room, propped my camera up to be able to see all three of us. But here's where the issue was. I just had my camera's microphone mounted on top of my camera as I normally do. It's like a shotgun microphone. And I was recording. Problem is, our air conditioning in our house broke over the summer. So we have one of those air conditioning towers that you like stick the thing out the window and then it blows cold air into the house. I put my camera right in front of the air conditioning unit because that was the only place that was going to be able to see all three of us. Problem is the only thing that my microphone picked up was the sound from the air conditioning unit. And guess what? The pod mics also picked up the sound from the air conditioning unit. So editing that episode was hell. It literally took me forever to do it because you could hear the air conditioning in there. We forgot to turn on the noise gates during that episode, so that was wild. And we could hear everybody else's voices in the other microphones. Anyways, so I know that my living room is a horrible place to record in, but I have to record because, unfortunately, with the way that social media works right now, the only way that you can promote anything is through, like, vertical videos that are short form. Whether it's Reels, Shorts, TikToks, whatever, like, you have to do short form vertical video. And the only way for me to be able to do that was by recording the whole podcast on video. So I have to record video. Fast forward to episode 10. I have a podcast studio, which is wild. So we also have this storage room in our house that we called the Red Room because, hello, it's red. The Red Room has been a mess since I've moved into this house. We always just shoved every single mess that we had in here. I had my spin bike in here, a broken treadmill in here, a bunch of vinyl records, a broken recliner, like just literally anything that needed to get the fuck out of the way in our house got shoved into this room. And I randomly got the Zoomies one day right before we recorded episode 10, and I was like, I'm going to make over to the Red Room because I'm going to record in there. So I wanted to have a room that I could just like close the door and have it be a dedicated space that was already ready to go when somebody got here and we could just jump into recording. And now here we are in the Red Room. Obviously, as I said, we just did a little bit of reflection, right? The podcast was originally created for me to have a creative outlet. As you guys know, I've been working in the movie industry for 10 years. And working in the movie industry, in my personal opinion, is the reason that I have kind of set up this podcast to be such a production. Because at this point in time, literally episode 11, this is a well-oiled machine right now, okay? We have a system. I know where everything is going to be placed. I have an exact way of starting every episode. We do sound check. We do all the thing. I slate in the beginning of every episode. And I really think that that's just because I know what it takes to have a successful production because I've watched it happen like my entire life. So I know all the steps. And I think that to like a lot of people on the outside, like especially like our friends and stuff that come by and see the podcast studio and everything like that, like they're very like, holy shit, you guys are really doing this. First of all, I had most of the equipment that I needed already because I've been a filmmaker for so long, but also I just know what it takes. Like I know what it takes. I know what to do. I know the steps, and there's not really a lot left for me to like figure out of how to run a video production. So I'm kind of just like running the podcast in the same way. But as I said, I originally started this podcast to have a creative outlet because I work in the movie industry, which means that I don't go to work every day. And for anybody else that might not go to work every single day or maybe works from home, it's really hard to like kind of keep your sanity. And I think that that's something that gets overlooked quite often if you're like doing any kind of freelance work. And it's really difficult to keep yourself motivated and to keep yourself sane a lot of the times and like give yourself a reason for living. Like it's really hard to like find a purpose for yourself when you don't have something that you have to do every single day. So for me, the podcast kind of became that outlet. You would think that I'd be used to it because I used to be a YouTuber. No. YouTube was a great way for me to keep myself sane and give myself something to do all the time because I was constantly working on my cars and editing videos that kind of revolved around that. But my YouTube channel, I'm not going to lie, made me feel really yucky. Like I just gave myself the ick. And I think it's because it felt so self-centered. Like it was just like me, all about me all the time. And as a person, I'm not like that. I don't operate that way. I'm I'd like to think of myself as a very selfless person. I'm constantly trying to figure out how I can help other people. And I always am putting others before myself. And I don't think that that's like me bragging in a sense. Like, I am literally last on the list for everything. If I can help somebody else do something before I can help myself, and I don't know how I'm going to end up getting something done for myself, I don't care. I'll just help the other person before I help myself, and I'll figure it the fuck out eventually. And that's just kind of in my nature. That's how I've always been. So having my YouTube channel be so self-centered, like just about me all the time, felt really weird for me. And I don't know, I just felt like I wasn't doing anyone any kind of service, you know? Like, I felt like I was kind of doing a disservice by just like taking up space and making it all about me all the time and not doing something for like a greater good or like for like a bigger reason than myself. So it felt really weird for me to constantly just be doing this for myself all the time and not feeling like I was helping other people or like there was no bigger, greater cause. And I guess if we're going to like refer back to the previous episode from URL versus IRL, I felt like I didn't have a why for my YouTube channel. I just felt like I was, you know, putting videos out there. It was keeping me entertained. It was helping me keep track of what I was doing in my car. And it was helping some people learn, you know, things about cars in the same way that I was learning things about cars. And I felt like it was like semi-educational, a little bit entertaining, but like really I just didn't see it like going anywhere bigger than that. And so I was just kind of like, I don't know, like I don't really know how I feel about this anymore. So I decided to kind of stop doing it. And also I moved, as you guys know. So like I said, I originally started this podcast for fun. It was supposed to be my creative outlet. It was supposed to be my way of keeping myself sane and giving myself a purpose. And then I realized that I have turned this into a well-oiled machine at this point. And I think that that's just really in my nature to do. And I think that that stems a little bit from like childhood trauma. I'm not going to lie. I think that, you know, when you have people that are just immediately good at everything, like you take somebody roller skating and they've never roller skated before and they're able to roller skate backwards by the time they leave the roller rink. Or like you take somebody bowling who doesn't really bowl like that and they're like getting strike after strike after strike after strike, and maybe they'll get a spare every now and then. My dad is one of those people. My dad is extremely good at everything almost immediately, and if he's not good at something, he learns the technique to be good at something almost right away because he like just like calculates in his brain. I just think of like algebra popping up in front of his eyeballs and like him like just like calculating everything, and then he like just figures out how to do it, and then he's immediately good at something. And so I think that that really like affected me because my dad, when I was growing up, taught me how to be good at everything in order to have fun, like right off the bat, you know? So like if I wanted to, here's the thing. For me, I used to do gymnastics. I was a competitive gymnast. I did gymnastics for 13 years, okay? When I was trying to learn how to do a backflip, I was having fun in gymnastics until I was trying to learn how to do a backflip. And then my dad, I think, saw that I was getting frustrated learning how to do a backflip. He had never done a backflip a day in his life. He jumped on the trampoline. He was out there for maybe an hour and he was doing backflips. And then he brought me outside on the trampoline and taught me how to do a backflip. And I think that because of the fact that he always taught me how to be good at everything in order to have fun doing it, that's kind of where my like weird relationship with fun came in. And this is something that my therapist and I talk about like all the time. Like I straight up don't know how to have fun. I don't think that I have anything that I do purely just for fun, but the podcast has been really fun. But I have a weird like relationship with it already where like I'm like it's fun, but it's also like work, quote unquote, in a sense. Like it's kind of like a job, but it's not really. But I take it really seriously because I release episodes every week. But it's supposed to be fun, and it is fun while I'm doing it. But then I also have to spend the time to edit it and like make sure that everything is good before it gets uploaded. And I hate to use the word polish before it gets uploaded because my whole point of this podcast is to like get away from the stigma that everything has to be a polished finish beforehand, like before we present it to anybody. But I also don't want to waste anybody's time. I'm an active podcast listener, and I personally hate when I listen to a podcast and like people just waste my time the entire fucking time that I'm there. And like they have the episode title as one thing and then we never actually get to that. And then I'm like 45 minutes in and I haven't heard anything about the title, and it just drives me insane. So with that being said, I feel like I should move on from this because it's probably been like close to 30 minutes and I've just been talking about the podcast the entire time. But One thing that I do want to say before I move on is I'm so grateful for you guys listening to the podcast every week. I really hope that you guys are getting a chance to tune in on Tuesdays, because that's when we upload the episodes. And then for the rest of the week, I usually just like promote the episode as much as I can. But I would really love to start hearing back from you guys a little bit more. There's a couple of you that are really, really active in communication with me, which I really, really, really appreciate. I love hearing from you guys so much, and that's the reason that I wanted to do today's episode. Today's episode I did is episode 11 intentionally. 11 was my last racing number, and so I thought it would just be kind of special to like do a episode with my old racing number. I don't know. I mean, 44 was my first racing number I ever had, but I felt like waiting until the 44th episode was like really dramatic to do a check-in with you guys. And as an active podcast listener, I personally hate that I never get to know my host. I can't stand that I never get to know my host. Like, I fall in love with podcasts because I think that the hosts are really good at what they do, and they have really entertaining conversations with other people, and like I just get emotionally attached to the podcast, but I hate that I don't ever get to know the host. And I feel like it's really important for you to get to know your host and for your host to get to know you, so that you feel like you're building a relationship with something that you're putting your time and energy into by listening, and I'm putting my time and energy into by creating for you guys to listen to it. So first of all, I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you that are here listening to the episodes every week. It literally means the world to me, and I would not be doing this without you guys. And I hope that you guys can feel the amount of passion that goes into these episodes. I try to mention it at the beginning of every episode or the end of every episode, and I just say, like, please reach out to us on Instagram. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening and taking your time to listen to us. I really, wouldn't be doing this without you guys, but it's true. It's so true. And I really wish that, like, you guys would take that more to heart and, like, reach out more often. I was so happy to hear from as many of you as I did. From the question sticker that I posted for this episode specifically coming up, I loved hearing from you guys, and I love hearing the kind of questions that you guys have. But I want to talk to you guys more often. Like, if you guys have ideas that you would like for me to, bring onto this podcast, I would love to hear them, and I would love to try it out, because just isn't like my importance of hosting this podcast is just as important as you guys listening to this podcast. And I really hope that you guys know that, because I would actually literally not be doing this without you guys, because then I would literally actually be talking to myself. So that's all I'm trying to say. I really want to hear from you guys, and I really hope that you guys take that to heart and are not afraid to reach out to me on whether it's my personal Instagram or on the podcast Instagram or in the comment section. I am going to be putting this podcast on YouTube. Is something that I've recently decided, because I heard from my YouTube audience and they really want me to have the podcast on YouTube so they can watch and listen on there. And I've actually gotten a couple of in-person inquiries about the podcast being on YouTube and where they can watch the long form version of the video. And I just never really considered doing that because it's more work, but like, I'm glad to hear that that's what people want. So I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'll be able to do it for this episode, but we'll see. I'm going to try my best. And if not, I think that maybe by like episode 15, we should probably be on YouTube. So I guess at this point in the podcast, I'm going to dig into the questions that you guys asked me on Instagram. So excuse me for being on my phone, but I'm going to have to read these questions out loud. So one of the questions is, what made you decide to start a podcast? Like I was saying earlier, I feel like I've always wanted to create something bigger than myself, and I don't like everything being about me all the time. It's not that I'm like afraid of being in a spotlight, because I'm a performer and obviously like I love a spotlight, but I felt like I could be a part of creating something bigger. So that's number one reason that I wanted to start this podcast. I feel like we're so like chronically online and so out of touch with the real world, and we're a huge part of the problem. Like, we're just feeding into the problem every single day that we're posting on the internet, and we're presenting a polished, finished version of everything. And I think the internet has become such a bad place for our mental health, honestly. I think that that's where like a lot of our mental health issues have kind of been coming in recently, is because of the internet. And I was a huge part of the problem at one point, and I really wanted to like not be a part of the problem anymore, but I also wanted to be a part of the solution. And I felt like by creating URL versus IRL, I was becoming a part of the solution. I had been asked to make a podcast, like probably as of like 5 years ago, people were asking me to make a podcast, and I just wanted to do something bigger. Like I said, like I didn't want to make an automotive based podcast, and it's not because the automotive world isn't like this bigger thing than me, because it is, but I just wanted to like do something that was really going to help people and not just entertain people, but be able to help people at the same time. Also, I am a little sponge when it comes to information. I absolutely love learning, okay? I'm a super curious and inquisitive mind, and I love asking people questions that they haven't been asked before and being able to dig deeper with them. Personally, I have been on the other end of multiple interviews, like on-camera interviews, podcasts, that kind of thing, because of my job. And something that I couldn't stand about a lot of the shows that I was going on is that people were basically asking me bullet point questions, and I felt like I could have done it, like I could have like hosted the show myself at that point. You could have just given me the questions printed out on a piece of paper, and I could have answered them one by one, and you would have had your content. And I only say that because people would ask me questions like, what was it like for you growing up as like a girl in motorsports when there weren't a lot of women doing motorsports back in the time frame when you were growing up? And I would answer them so honestly. I would be like, yeah, it was really hard for me. I was getting bullied in like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It made me want to stop racing at one point, and I'm really glad that I didn't, because I don't know where I would be to this day if I would have stopped racing and I would have let these bullies like really get to me, but I really kept it. Like, I got to a point in time in my life when I was in like middle school that I was hiding the fact that I was racing from people. You know, like I was hiding that. I was hiding that part of myself, which was a huge part of my like personality growing up, and like my just developmental part of myself and my brain and my self-identity. And I was having to hide that from people. And then I was getting bullied for so long when I was in like, I think 8th grade. And everybody learned what like being gay was in 8th grade. And I was getting bullied all of the fucking time. Everybody was thinking that I was like a lesbian because I raced motocross and because I didn't have a boyfriend and all this other stuff. Let me tell you how deep this shit goes. I started lying to people in school, telling them that I had a boyfriend that also raced motocross, that was older than me and really tall. He was just like this bigger dude or whatever. And so I started buying, when my mom and I would like go clothing shopping and stuff, I started buying like oversized clothing, and I was borrowing my mom's clothes and my dad's clothes, like hoodies and sweatshirts and that kind of thing, because I was lying to people in school, telling them that those were my boyfriend's clothes. And that has literally fallen into my personality as an adult. Like, it carried all the way through adulthood for me. And now that's where I wear oversized clothing, is because I kind of like developed that for myself at a young age. And it's now transitioned into my adult life. And you know what these interviewers would ask me after that? I would dig deep and have to stop myself from crying on camera. And they'd be like, so what's your favorite movie that you've worked on? And obviously, like, all these podcasts and like, you know, on camera like platforms that I was doing were all run by a business. So in a sense, like, no, they didn't actually give a fuck about me. But it was really hard to like have those kinds of questions asked and then not even have a conversation about it, and not even to feel like a little bit relieved or like maybe my story could help somebody else, because there was no resolution. Also, I've always wanted to be an on-camera host of some sort. I always wanted to like do some kind of like motorsports hosting or like TV hosting for a show or something of the sort. And this is a great way for me to be able to practice doing that, because I feel like this is a good way for me to exercise that muscle. So that's part of the reason that I started a podcast. And also, it had just been requested of me for the past like 5 years. And I finally came up with something that I actually wanted to do, and something that I was passionate about, and something that I wanted to talk about. And I felt like I had longevity in that. Next question. Damn, that was a long one. Let's see. Okay, next question is, what makes you genuinely happy and how did you find it? Damn. I love questions like this. This is what I'm saying. I want a nice, vulnerable, safe space on the internet, and that's, I feel like, exactly what we are creating with this. And I'm so happy that you guys are asking me like deeper rooted questions like this, because I feel like this is really how we're going to get to know each other. What genuinely makes me happy and how did I find it? I think that the first thing that ever made me happy in my life was making my dad proud. And we're going to dig into a little bit more of my childhood trauma here. My dad sacrificed a lot for me to have the kind of life that I had growing up. And I'm so grateful for him for that. And for some reason, I've noticed that at a really, really, really young age. And I don't know if it's because my parents were extremely honest with me. First of all, when my parents found out that they were having me and they found out that they were having a girl, obviously my dad wanted a boy. I think most fathers do, if they do like super manly things, you know what I'm saying? Like if they like do motorsports or like skateboard or like this, are traditionally like male dominated things, they are hoping that they get a little boy so that they can do those same things with their son. My dad didn't get that. I'm a girl, obviously. And so when I learned that information, first of all, before I was born, my dad was a professional motocross racer, okay? He only became a stuntman because I was born and he felt like he needed a better form of longevity in his career that would be more sustainable than being a professional motocross racer, because unfortunately most professional motocross racers and athletes are done by the time that they're like 40. And I think that just because like my dad sacrificed so much and like had to change so much just because of me, I always really wanted to make him proud. And I think that it gives me a little bit of like a people-pleasing tendency now. I know this is probably not where you thought we were going with this question, but here we are. So I really think that, you know, making him proud and making him happy was like one of the first things that ever really made me happy. So when I learned this because I got my first dirt bike when I turned 3 years old. That was my third birthday present, was a dirt bike. And I noticed how happy it made my dad to watch me like riding this dirt bike and to be able to teach me something. My dad loves to teach. My dad is an extremely dedicated teacher. If you want to be good at something, my dad will make sure that you are good at whatever it is, as I was saying earlier in this episode. So I really think the first thing that ever made me happy in life was like making my dad happy and making him proud. But I really think that I genuinely found happiness from being inspired by other people and by being inspired by the people around me. Obviously, you need to try new things to find happiness and find something that's going to bring you like that spark of passion that I think all of us are looking for to keep driving us through this life. But I think that you can find that in so many different ways that people don't realize, because people think that you just have to like try new things to find passion and to find happiness, but you have to be inspired to try new things. And for me, my inspiration was always like my dad, and I found my passion because I was hanging out with somebody that was inspiring me every single day. So yeah, I think that's how I found my genuine happiness. Okay, next question is, do you remember everything? Absolutely not. Do you hear me? Absolutely not. I don't remember anything at all. I don't know what that is. I know that I have a dissociative disorder of some sort. My therapist and I are currently in the middle of like trying to figure it the fuck out and trying to figure out where it is, where it comes from, where it stems from, all that kind of thing. Dissociation is technically a trauma response, is what Google will tell you. I don't think that that's fair, because I don't think that you form a dissociative disorder from a specific event of trauma. But I do think that people can dissociate in traumatic events, if you know what I'm saying. But anyways, no, I don't remember everything. I have a horrible memory, and I wish that I could remember things a little bit better, but unfortunately, my brain doesn't work that way. Next question. Will you marry me and build Z's forever? Oh, thanks for the question, but I'm sure you already know the answer to that because I don't know you, unfortunately, and I am in a very committed relationship, so I'm sorry to reject your proposal, but no. Let's do another one, okay. Would you say that moving back to your hometown helped your healing journey? Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my God, yes. I think that moving back to my hometown is one of the best things that I've ever done for myself. And you know what's hilarious? It's like I always would watch these like celebrities and stuff that would like move back to their hometown after they became famous and stuff, and like they would just like stay there, and I totally understand why. I was actually having this conversation with Ryan recently because Ryan just moved. Super sad about that, by the way. Like literally cried about it, talked to my therapist about it for a couple of days, because as soon as I moved back here, I felt like Ryan moved. And Ryan lives really far away now. He lives like an hour and 40 minutes away from me and Josh, which is just so sad. You guys know Ryan. He's been a co-host on many of the episodes. That doesn't mean that he's not coming back on the podcast, though. It's just going to take a lot more scheduling for us to do it, but I'm determined to make it work because we all know and love Ryan. But anyways, Ryan and I were talking about this recently because he just moved away far for the first time in his life. And he was like, I don't want to move back to my hometown. Like, I feel like that's going to make me feel like a failure. And I was like, dude, I just moved back to my hometown and I don't feel like a failure. I feel better than I ever have. But I think it's different because I moved away for so long. But I really think that, like, being back in my home state, because I'm not in the exact town that I grew up in. I'm adjacent to that town, but I think that being back in my home state with the people that I used to know has been really grounding for me, and it's been like a nice like bring me back down to earth. And I don't know if that's because I was living in La La Land for 10 years, like literally because I was living in Los Angeles, but very, very, very happy to be back here. I think it's really grounding for me, and I think that it has just kind of like brought me back down to earth a little bit. So yeah, I really feel like moving back to my hometown has definitely helped with my healing journey so far. I think I'm in a much better mental space than I was before then. How you feeling? I am feeling pretty good right now. Having a little bit of allergies today, which has been very difficult, especially during this podcast, but genuinely I'm feeling really good. I am still in therapy, which is great. Big advocate for therapy, as all of you know. But I'm genuinely feeling really great. I'm not super consistent in therapy right now, and that's just because I don't feel like I need to be. There's a point in time where sometimes I'm doing weekly sessions, and then there's other times that I'm like, I'll catch up with you in like 2 or 3 weeks, because I really don't feel like have much going on right now, and I could not be more grateful for that. So I'm feeling really good. Thanks for asking. Another question that we have, I'm going to have to really read this one because this one's longer. What are the differences in your stunt driving career compared to what most people think it's like? Ooh, we could do a whole episode on URL versus IRL of stunt driving. And that's something I've actually wanted to do with my dad, because my dad's also a stunt driver, and I think that my dad and I would absolutely kill it on that episode. So one thing that I will say to that question really quickly, because I want to answer all of the questions in this podcast, is I think that people assume that stunt drivers are reckless, you know, and we're just these like daredevils, adrenaline junkies that just love to drive fast and slide around quarters and like, you know, do the biggest, baddest thing on set. Absolutely not. It is such a controlled environment, and everything that we do is so extremely calculated, and we have to be extremely precise. Extremely precise. Like, we are not going balls to the wall on set. And I think that that's a really bad reputation that we get. Or not a bad reputation, but I guess just a bad assumption is like people think that we're like these daredevils that just love to like treat everything like a racetrack. And it's really not. Somebody literally asked me last night when I was riding in the car with them if I'm a like really aggressive driver on the road. And I was like, no, not unless if I need to be. Like, I'm genuinely pretty chill. Cruising at like 75, 78 miles an hour most of the time. So that's what I had to say about that. But I'm going to do a whole episode on that. I really, really want to. I think that my dad and I could absolutely kill it on that episode. So stay tuned for that. I just have to get him to sit down for a little while, which is a very difficult thing to do. Next question. So it's not a question. Just wanted to say that you are beautiful. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's so nice. Another question is, oh my God, another one. Why aren't you a model? You are too beautiful. I appreciate that. The reason that I'm not a model is because I have very bad body dysmorphia, but I don't hate myself, which is fantastic. I'm going to try to keep staying on that train as long as I possibly can. I have a really weird, interesting relationship with my physicality in my like body, which I feel like I could dig into like a little bit without harping on it for too long of a time. So number one, I don't think I've ever actually been all the way happy with my body. I think my physical appearance, like the way that my face looks and the way that like my hair is and like my upper portion of my body, I've always been pretty comfortable with. And I think that I have my mom to thank for that, because my mom really raised me with a lot of grace. And she, you know, always told me that you can't just be pretty, like you have to also be really nice, because if you have an ugly personality, nobody's gonna like you. You know what I mean? Like my mom, I think, was very like humbling of me in that sense from a very young age, and she really like drilled that into my brain. So I don't have like a problem with my physical appearance, but my actual body, Lord have mercy, good luck getting me in a bathing suit. I've never been like happy with my physique, I guess is the way to put that, even though I have lost weight a couple of times and I've gained weight and that kind of thing. But I don't know, I think also because I like wear oversized clothing, I don't hyperfixate on my body very often. I also have a lot of stomach issues too. Like I have a lot of digestive issues. So I think that that is a big part of the problem with like my physique. But anyways, I'll figure it out one of these days. Like I've changed my diet. I'm vegetarian now. And you know, It's like a never-ending fucking cycle with our physique, I feel like. And I really try my best not to hyperfixate on it because I think I will drive myself insane. And I always feel really bad for people that do that. So I try my best not to like focus on that, and I try to focus on like how I'm physically feeling rather than how I physically look. And I think that that's been a pretty healthy way of me, like, you know, living my life so far. Next question. Will you drift again? Yeah, absolutely. I sold my drift car, and so obviously drifting has not been at the top of my priority. Obviously, I have my Corvette that I could easily drift, but tires are really expensive for the Corvette. They cost like $500 a tire, like specifically each, like $2,000 for a set of 4. Okay. They're very expensive. So that has not been at the top of my priority list either. Also, I have a driving simulator that I have been needing to fully set up since I purchased all the stuff for it. Problem is I don't have the driving components, like the computer's built, I have the monitor, I have the seat, I have the whole frame set up and everything. I need the driving components, like the steering wheel, the pedals, the shifter, everything like that, the e-brake. And I just keep getting option paralysis and not making a decision. So, sorry about that. Anyways, next question. Let's see. If you could have any other career, what would it be? Ooh, we're getting a lot of career questions here. I love this. But I don't love this at the same time. Let me tell you guys something really quick. When it comes to my career, I have noticed that people tend to, number one, ask me a lot of questions about my own career. And then it just becomes like a weird, like, interview kind of session, like, as soon as I meet people, because unfortunately, people have a really bad habit of telling others what I do for a living before I even get a chance to meet them. And I think it's because I have a cool job. First of all of us have work. Like, all of us have to work to pay our bills and live our lives. And I don't live to work. I work to live. And I think that that's a big distinction between me and some other people. So for me, my job is not my entire life, and it's not what I like revolve my whole life and my personality around. So I get in a really weird position, unfortunately, sometimes when people like already know what I do for a living before I even got a chance to meet them. And that happens to me day in, day out. I literally can't stop it from happening. And I feel like if I were to tell people, like, hey, if you could just, you know, not tell this new person what I do for a living before I get a chance to meet them, I don't even get a chance to do that because they've already told them. So I get this weird sense of like imposter syndrome every time I meet new people, because people like, I feel like put me on like this pedestal before they even get a chance to meet me. Like, I can't tell you how many people I have met through friends. Like, it's a friend of a friend and they are already intimidated by me before they even know me at all. I've never even gotten a chance to shake their hand before, give them a hug or anything of the sort. And they're already like intimidated and scared to talk to me, which I don't understand. But anyways, yeah, I have a really weird relationship with my career and other people because of that. And I also feel like I end up in like a miniature interview every time I meet a new person, because either they ask me what I do for work and I tell them and I'm honest about it, and then they just have so many questions that I don't even get to learn anything about them. And then everything just becomes about me all again, which we know I don't love, because I like making like genuine relationships with people. So that becomes really difficult. But the question was, if you could have any other career, what would it be? Also, you know what? The other thing is too, is I feel like people belittle themselves around me because of my job, which I really wish that people wouldn't do, because like I don't deserve to be on a pedestal. I have a job just like you have a job. And like my job could be just as interesting as your job, but unfortunately nobody's thinking about it like that, which is really hard. Just because I have the cool job. Like, other people have cool jobs. I'm interviewing other people about their jobs right now. Like, that's what I do on this podcast half of the time. Anyways, the real question was, if you could have any other career, what would it be? Honestly, what I'm doing right now. Everything that I do for myself outside of my career is exactly what I want to do in my life. And I'm so grateful that I have the space to do that. I really could see, like, podcasting becoming a career. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I really feel like this podcast has something special about it. And I think that, you know, if I can just keep this going and the right person realizes the potential that this podcast has and like sees what I see, I really feel like it could get picked up. And I really, 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 really am manifesting that and like hoping for that every single day. So if you guys are ever putting your thoughts and intentions into the universe, please think of me when you do that, because I would absolutely love to do this for a living and like just, you know, continue talking to other people and like really getting to know people a little bit. So anyways, yeah, if I had a different career, what would it be? Probably this. I absolutely fucking love doing this, and I wish I would have started it sooner, but I'm really glad that I started it when I did, because like I said, I think that this is exactly what I wanted, and I didn't come up with this idea soon enough. So I'm glad that I waited, and that I'm not going to have to bounce around from one podcast idea to another. So this is what I would be doing for a career. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. Anyways, next question. Also, this person asked a extremely hilarious question that I was going to save until the end, but I'm just going to read it now so I don't forget. It says, fuck, marry, kill, The Situation, Pauly D, and Ronnie, LMFAO. I have been so obsessed with Jersey Shore since I moved back to New Jersey, because I never watched Jersey Shore as a kid. First of all, I do not watch a lot of media. I don't consume a lot of things that are on the TV. I don't watch a lot of TV, movies, anything of the sort. I've always been very focused on creating things that are supposed to be on TV and in movies and that kind of thing. But moving back to New Jersey, unfortunately, a lot of the people that I know make insane Jersey Shore references. And so I felt like I had to watch Jersey Shore just to be able to like understand and get the references, especially because now they're still filming Jersey Shore Family Vacation, which is so fucking good, by the way. Oh my God, I'm literally obsessed. So I binge watched Jersey Shore in like probably a 2-month time span. I finished all of the seasons, and now I'm almost caught up on Family Vacation, and I absolutely love Jersey Shore. But anyways, fuck, marry, kill, The Situation, Pauly D, and Ronnie. Kill Ronnie for sure. No offense, Ronnie. I'm sorry. You literally get on my fucking nerves in that show. I would probably marry The Situation now because he's so much better in Family Vacation. Like, back in the day, would have married Pauly D all day long and probably fucked The Situation. But now the roles are reversed. I feel like Pauly D is very much so like me, and you literally cannot tie him down because he's always traveling for work and stuff like that. And I just feel like, I don't know, Pauly D is such a good time, you know? Like, he just seems like such a good time and, like, positive vibes. I don't know. I couldn't honestly marry either one of them. So I feel like that could be, like, swapped. But The Situation, like, Mike has just become such a good person. Okay, actually, no. I wouldn't marry The Situation, but I would marry Mike, if that makes sense. If you watch Jersey Shore, you should know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, let's move on. Let's see. How old were you when you first drove a car? Like, you first sat in the seat and pushed the pedals, etc. I think I was of legal driving age the first time I drove a car. Pretty sure I was like 16, because I don't really have any photos of me like sitting in the driver's seat of a car as I was really young, like most people do. I think the first time I actually drove a car was when I was 16 years old. I wasn't even like moving my parents' cars or anything like that in the driveway or anything of the sort when I was younger. I think I was actually like 16 years old. Yeah, I got my permit on my 17th birthday, and then I didn't get my driver's license until 6 months later. And most people get their driver's license on their 17th birthday. So I think I was like probably 16 or 17 years old when I first drove a car, which is kind of wild because I think most people were assuming that I like started driving a car when I was like 6 years old. Nope, I was of legal age. Okay, what's the next question? Next question is, what has been your favorite stunt that you've ever done so far in your career? Favorite stunt that I've ever done so far in my career. I just worked on this movie called The Union, and I didn't just work on it. It was filmed in 2022, but it just came out on Netflix recently, and it's number 1 on Netflix right now. Yay! So, The Union is number 1 on Netflix right now, which is surreal to say. It's a movie with Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry. I doubled Halle Berry in the movie, but yeah, I think that was probably one of my favorite movies that I've done so far. Not necessarily my favorite stunt, but I think that was the most like intensely involved that I had gotten to be in a car chase with my dad. That's like super duper specific, but my dad and I have always dreamed of doing a super intense car chase together. Like, where both of us are main drivers and main characters in the movie. And that finally happened on The Union. So that's probably one of my favorite jobs that I've done. Favorite stunt that I've done? I think that my favorite stunt that I've done, God, it's so hard to say. Like, I don't want to say a cannon because that's so, like, generic of a response. But the job that I got to do a cannon on, which was called Treadstone, I worked on that in Budapest. That was also a really cool one. I love working out of the country. That's, like, one of my favorite things to do. And I think that I've done some of my biggest jobs out of the country as well. So anyways, okay, next question is marriage, kids, LOL, sorry. Don't be sorry. I'm not married yet, and I don't have any kids yet. This dives a little deeper. I feel like we could actually get really personal with this question. So, as a person, I am very hard on myself. And I think that I'm like very hard on myself specifically with timelines. I had like a timeline for myself when I was a kid that I wanted to have kids by the time that I was 30 years old because I didn't want to be a quote unquote old parent. And unfortunately, that still kind of like sticks in my brain to this day. I don't know if I'm going to stick to that timeline or not because it's coming up quick because I'm 28 years old. So that's a hard one because if I don't get married in the next like year, that would mean that I'm not having kids. So it's a really tough one. This is like a tough question. So I don't know if I'm going to end up having kids. I would like to because of the partner that I'm with right now. And I think that the two of us would be really great parents. So we'll see. Tune back in a couple of years and we'll find out. Okay, let's see. Oh, shit. Out of all the movies that you've worked on, which movie universe would you want to live in? Damn. Wow, that's a cool question. I've never been asked that before. What movie universe would I want to live in? Barbie. Barbie. All day long. I would love to live in Barbie's world. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Yeah, I would fucking kill to live in the Barbie movie. Oh my God. Okay, next question. Not a question. You're just amazing and I miss you. I miss you too. I love you so much. Okay, here's another question. How did you get into stunt driving, training, classes? I'm over my 9 to 5. Crying emoji. Okay, so the easy answer for me getting into stunt driving is nepotism. But I really feel like I was bred for this shit from day one, okay? Because I got my first motorcycle when I was 3 years old, and I also was in gymnastics by the time that I was 3. So I really feel like I was set up for success from a really young age because I did the right sports in order to become a stunt performer. But nepotism is the easy answer because my dad is also a stuntman. So that's how I got into stunt driving. But I also just like had the passion for it. Like I said, like I love cars and I learned to love working on cars. I wanted to know everything about them so that I could understand my car better when it was doing something that I didn't want it to do, or I wanted it to do a specific thing and I wanted to figure out how to make it do that specific thing. So passion is the utmost important in my personal opinion. But I also just think that I was like in the right place at the right time with the right skill set, because when I first broke into the stunt industry, there were not a lot of people that looked like me. And I'm talking about my sexual orientation and my skin tone, okay? So I just was in the right place at the right time with the right skill set, in my opinion. And I also had a really good connection into the industry, which really helped me get my foot through the door and kind of come out swinging. Training and classes. I did do a couple of stunt driving training courses. I did motion picture driving clinic. I think that motion picture driving clinic is a really good way to kind of get a little bit of a taste of what it's going to be like on set. They also have other driving courses, like Drivers East is another one over here on the East Coast. And it kind of gives you a little taste of what it's going to feel like when you're on set. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into stunt driving and some of the classes that I took. Okay, what's a creative endeavor you did that you wish more people had cared about? Probably the podcast. I hate to keep bringing it back to this every single time, but I really wish that more people gave a fuck about the podcast and more people were listening to it. Obviously, I love, and cherish the listeners that we already have, but I really think that this podcast is like a great example of what we need on the internet versus what we currently have on the internet. And I wish that we had more people listening and we had more people in this little safe space of the internet that I have created. So yeah, the podcast is definitely one, and it's really hard to promote a podcast. God damn, and it's difficult. I think that this is one of the most difficult things that I have created that has been for me to be able to market. It's really difficult to get people to listen to a podcast because you're asking them for so much of their time to invest in just listening to something when they could be doing so many other things. Like, you could be jamming out to an album or like listening to music while you're driving or talking to someone on the phone, and you're going to listen to me talk instead. I really wish that I could get more people to give a fuck about this, but I think that I will in time. So I'm just going to keep chugging along. Next question is, no idea what to ask, but what is your favorite tattoo that you currently have? My favorite tattoo that I currently have. This is probably between two of them. I have one tattoo on my hand that is a moon with a plant, a little like lavender, sagey kind of plant growing out of it, and some stars. And this tattoo means a lot to me. It's a very specific moon phase that I picked that falls on a very specific date. And I think that this is one of the most beautiful tattoos that I have. And I am so happy that I did put it on my hand because I get to see it every day. And it really made me feel like I was expressing myself truly for the first time when I got this tattoo. So that's probably one of my favorites. But I think that one of my most meaningful tattoos is this tattoo that I have on my forearm. It's 2 empty Polaroid pictures. And on those 2 Polaroid pictures, written across them is written, "The memories are worth it," in like the little box on the bottom of the Polaroid. And that's written in my best friend's handwriting, who passed away at a very young age. I'm sure you guys have probably heard, if you follow me on any other social media platform, that my best friend passed away when she was in her early 20s from a horrific car accident. And she was literally the best friend I could have ever asked for. She would show up to every single small milestone that I had, even though I lived on the opposite side of the country. And she would do that in an instant, like just very impulsive, but was willing to do whatever she could to support me. Her name was Tiara. And one conversation that the 2 of us used to constantly come back to was that we would work ourselves to death. Like, we would just constantly be going and going and going and going and going. And whether it was me through my like career and my content creation, or whether it was for her through her career and like being involved in all these motorsport events, we would just work ourselves to complete exhaustion. But we always said that the memories that we were creating were worth the exhaustion and what we were putting ourselves through to create those memories. And that was just a conversation that the 2 of us would constantly have because we could really, really relate to them. And so that's probably also one of my most meaningful tattoos that I have. Thanks for asking. That was a cool question. Do you still want to pursue drifting professionally / competitively? I never wanted to pursue drifting professionally or competitively because it's a judged sport, and that's the only way that you can score is by judges. And so I don't like being, I don't like it all coming down to somebody's opinion, but I also know that there's a lot more money that you have to pour into the sport than you're ever going to get out of the sport, unless if you become one of the like top dogs. And even then, they're still not getting paid enough money. And I don't mean to make everything sound like a business move, but if it doesn't make dollars, then it doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? And like, I really have to keep that mindset in the front of my brain at all times because in a sense, I am a freelancer,? So like I have to be able to keep myself afloat and keep myself alive somehow. And I knew that drifting was not going to be the way to do that. But I loved drifting. Like, it was so much fun. And I had so much fun when I was doing it consistently. And it was really helping me with my career. But my career in stunt driving was what I was always focused on, not necessarily drifting. But drifting was a great way for me to practice stunt driving. Okay, next question. What is your favorite coffee? Ooh, man. I was waiting for this question. I am absolutely in love with very specific coffee places, okay? This one coffee shop in the state of New Jersey is called Evermore Coffee. Oh my God, I'm obsessed. I'm literally obsessed. I go there all of the time. If you guys ever want to meet me randomly out in the wild, that is where you will find me. I spend so much time there, whether I'm like working on my laptop, editing the podcast, or like whatever. I buy all of my beans from there, and I make my lattes at home for myself a lot of the times because I have like a little espresso machine here to make myself my lattes. I also really love Better Buzz coffee. I also love Alfred's coffee, was another one that I used to order from all the time. I am very specific about the way that I like my coffee. I like espresso with milk. I don't like actual brewed coffee, and I think that's because I have a lot of digestive issues. Black coffee, pour over coffee, brewed coffee, that kind of thing does not sit very well with my stomach. Iced coffee also doesn't sit very well with my stomach, so I need to drink like literally just like espresso with milk in whatever form that is, whether it's like a cortado or like a cappuccino or a latte or like a flat white. Like, I need like espresso with a lot of milk. And that's the only way that I can really enjoy coffee. But thanks for asking that question. Next question. God, we have so many questions. I literally love this so much. Thank you guys so much for like asking me so many questions, because this is really keeping me rolling in this episode. Next question is, how would you want to evolve your platform once the podcast grows more traction? Okay, so this is a really interesting question because I feel like this is kind of asking me, like, where do I see the podcast evolving to? Like, how is the podcast going to change over the trajectory of time? And I think that I would love to do like 2-part episodes of the podcast. So if I ever did like 2 episodes a week instead of 1 episode a week, I would do part 1 as the interview, right? And then I would do part 2 as like the digging deeper session so that we can really get into like almost like therapy style talk. And we can dig really deep with the guests. And like part 1, I can ask all the questions that like you guys are submitting and like the rapid fire questions. That's what I really think would be really dope if I ever move over to like 2 episodes a week or so. And I was just thinking about that the other day. So thanks for asking that question. We're just manifesting here. We're putting everything out into the universe and hoping that it happens. And we're going to make it happen. I promise you. Okay, now this one. Oh my God, this person asked me so many questions. I remember this. I literally got like 10 questions from the same person. Okay. Somebody said, I know this sucks, but I'm sorry. Everything, just tell us everything. I feel like I'm spilling as much tea as I possibly can in this episode. How did you get into cars? How did you get into photography? The effects that they have had in/on you. Okay, so your first question is, how did I get into cars? I feel like that really just came from my dad. Again, my dad was like just such an inspirational person for me in my life, and I really latched on to a lot of things that he loved because I saw the kind of passion that he had for those things. And unfortunately, the one thing that my mom was really passionate about growing up was baking, and I am an absolutely horrible cook, so I couldn't latch on to that one. Though I do enjoy her baking very often, and I would absolutely indulge any time that she would bake anything. I was the first person to try everything. But anyways, photography, same thing. I think I digged into that a little bit earlier where I was like, my dad really needed help editing his demo reel because he's not great with computer work. And so I tried to learn how to edit so that I could help him with his demo reel. And then I wanted to get better at editing so that the next time that he had something to edit, I could just do it for him. And the only way that I was able to edit anything was by recording things. So that's kind of how I got into cameras. This question is really interesting. It says, I don't know, color theories, like the way that colors make you feel. Does blurple versus pink feel different? This bluish purple that I have in my hair right now versus like having my hair pink for such a long time does feel extremely different. I think that the pink was really fun and I really enjoyed it because it was a way for me to like test out playing with colors for the first time, because when I was in high school I was not allowed to dye my hair. But I finally lightened my hair like back in 2019 and I loved it because I felt like it made me look like a lighter and brighter person, because I have horrible resting bitch face. I have terrible RBF, and I think that that's part of the reason why people always tell me that I'm intimidating as a person. But I think that the pink was a really fun way for me to experiment with color for the first time because it washed out really nicely. Like my hair would always just go right back to the blonde that I had as prior. So pink was really fun for that reason. I think that pink was really fun for the summer, but pink is not my favorite color. I learned to love pink because of my hair dye, thankfully. But blue has always been my favorite color. My race car was blue. I had my race cars blue and purple for a while, as you guys know. And you know what's so funny is I always made this joke that I am like the 4th Powerpuff Girl, and that's because I like relate to the Powerpuff Girls so hard. Like I find Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup really make up my entire personality. Like all 3 of their personalities smushed into one is like how I view myself as a person. And I found out recently that there actually is a 4th Powerpuff Girl, and her hair is blue, and she's black. Like, she is the same color skin as me, which is wild. I learned that on the internet, but I haven't actually seen her in the new Powerpuff Girls, like, episodes. But anyways, I love the blue. It makes me feel a lot more edgy. I wanted to go with blue because, as I was saying before, the lighter color hair made me feel like a lighter, brighter person, and like I seemed more approachable. But I wanted to get comfortable with like seeing myself in a more natural form, and I wanted to get like re-familiar with myself, because every time that I was going to work and I had to wear a black wig, I like hated the way that I looked all day. So dyeing my hair a darker, like still vibrant, colorful color was kind of my way to kind of get re-comfortable with myself and how I naturally look. Very weird way of doing that, but whatever. I love the blue. I think it's great. A lot of people tell me that it feels a lot edgier than the pink, and it feels a lot more like me, which has made me really happy to feel. Let's see. If you could have any wild animal as a domesticated pet, what would it be? A fox. I love fox so much. I also really love giraffes, but like my house is not big enough for that. But I love fox. I think that would be so fun. Okay, tell us how URL versus IRL makes you feel. And as a host, is it empowering or is it scary? I think that URL versus IRL is an extremely empowering platform. It is a little bit scary because something that I noticed when we were filming episode 10 is it makes me feel really dumb sometimes because I feel like I'm asking the like dumb questions and not always like the deep questions or like the super educated intellectual kind of questions. But to me, I feel like I would be doing disservice to the rest of you guys if I was constantly just asking these like deeper intellectual questions as if I know everything about the subject that we're talking about. Because the point is for all of us to learn together and to get to know what it's like for someone realistically versus what we see online and in the media. So I don't think that I'm doing a disservice by asking the kind of questions that I'm asking, but that's another part of the reason why I'm constantly asking you guys to submit your questions before I start an episode so that I can ask people the right kinds of questions, you know? But there's no such thing as a dumb question, and I have to remind myself of that very often because I am super duper self-conscious of like my intellectual level. I don't think that I'm a super duper smart person. I was never like blown out of the water kind of grades or like I was never on like a dean's list or like, you know, got honor roll in school or anything like that. I think I'm just very average smart kind of person. And also my vocabulary is not wide by any means. I try my best to like learn new words with vocabulary, but unfortunately if I don't use them, I lose them and I just forget. But I don't think that that's like the most important thing in this life. I think that like our intention is the most important thing in this life. And, you know, being intentional and mindful, demure. Let me shut the fuck up. Anyway, yeah, I think it's really empowering. I don't think that URL versus IRL is scary by any means. I think that some of the other platforms that I've had before in the past have been really scary platforms for me. And I've been really nervous about posting things on the internet. But URL versus IRL, I'm just excited every single fucking week. So thank you guys for being here. Who would be your dream guest on your podcast? Right now, my dad. I cannot get a hold of that man. I cannot get him to sit still for a long enough period of time to do an episode with me. But I want to have my dad on the podcast so bad. Oh my God. I have like 5 different episode ideas for just him. And I would absolutely love to have him on the podcast. I wish that I could get him on here. If I'm talking about realistic, big dog, Billie Eilish. And that's because I would propose to her. Right here in this room, I would propose to her. I literally love her so much. I would love to talk to Billie Eilish because I think that she's got a really interesting relationship with the internet as well, where I know that she was like a chronically online Gen Z kid at first, and then the internet was like really mean to her, and she felt like the internet didn't deserve to see her in the vulnerable way that she used to portray herself on the internet, and so she kind of just like really backed off. And I think that she and I would have a super interesting conversation about like what it's like to really be her versus what it's like to be her on the internet, you know? So yeah, I would love to talk to Billie Eilish on the podcast. But aside from Billie Eilish, I would love to have my dad. My dad is definitely a dream guest for me. You should get a P.O. box or for fan mail or something like that and do like opening and answering letter questions, maybe. I don't know. I personally don't think that people would actually write like handwritten letters into my P.O. box if I did have one over here. I think that if this platform gets big enough, at one point I will definitely create a P.O. box in case if people want to like send stuff or something like that. But somebody did say that I would be sending you plushies all the time for like your cast and crew and all that kind of thing, which is so funny. I'm glad that you have recognized the plushies in the podcast. The reason that we have the plushies is because it helps people think when you have something to do with your hands a lot of the time, especially like you have this like microphone stand right in your general vicinity and it's like really invading your personal space. So I like to give people something to do with their hands so that they don't feel like they have to be like touching the microphone or like constantly moving the microphone. And it also helps us just keep our train of thought. So we have 3 plushies now. We have a blueberry, a strawberry, and Jade the avocado. We don't have names for the blueberries or strawberries yet. If you guys want to submit names, please feel free to do so. Okay, you guys, that was all the questions. Lord have mercy, what a long episode. I can't believe that I talked to myself for this long, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, like, I can't stress enough how proud I am of like how far URL versus IRL has come. I would love to hear from you guys and for you guys to let me know how often you would want me to do solo episodes. I could do them like twice a month, once every 3 months, once every 2.5 months, like once every 10 episodes. You guys just let me know what you're thinking. But like I said before, I really feel like it's important for me to get to know you guys just like it is for you guys to get to know me. So I really appreciate you guys always reaching out to me on Instagram and stuff. And like, I just absolutely love hearing from you guys. It makes my freaking day. Some of the comments that we've gotten so far about URL versus IRL have been so sweet. I'm going to try to organize them for the next episode that we do so that I can read some of them to you guys out loud. And you guys can just really feel the impact of what we're really making and what we're creating here, you guys. Like I said, I feel like we don't have enough examples like the one that we're doing here in this little corner of the internet, and I really wish that we had more things like this because I feel like it would really bring us back to real life a little bit. So, as I always say, thank you guys so much for listening. Like, I seriously can't even believe that we're as far along as we are, and I wouldn't be doing this without you guys. So I really, really, really appreciate you guys for listening and for tuning in every Tuesday. And you know what's so funny is, like, I say see you next Tuesday at the end of every single podcast and no one has caught it. Like, literally not a singular person has made a comment on the fact that I'm saying see you next Tuesday, and I think we all know what that's an acronym for. But I just thought it would be like a funny little thing. I like caught myself saying it one time and then I just like kept it going and nobody thought it was funny. So I guess maybe I'll stop. But anyways, again, I appreciate you guys for tuning in every Tuesday, just like you do, or whatever day you get a chance to do that during the week. It means the world to me that you would actually spend your time with me, listening to me talk instead of doing something else that you could be doing. Yeah, you guys, I love you so much. I can't even stress that enough. Thank you guys so much for your support so far. Feel free to follow us on the Instagram page. Follow me on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. And this next episode that we're going to do is going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I can't wait for you guys to tune in next week. Yeah, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy that you're here, and I wouldn't be doing this without you. So seriously, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I love you guys so much. I will see you on the next one.
Are you fucking kidding me? No way. All right, talk to you soon on the next URL versus